Good morning, I'm John Northcott. We begin with breaking news, a stunning admission from Iran. Officials confirming that Iran is responsible for shooting down Ukrainian Airlines Flight 752. The crash in Tehran killed all 176 passengers on board, including 57 Canadians.
در پایان این بخش خبری بیانیه ستاد کل نیروهای مسلح در خصوص سقوط
In a statement broadcast on Iranian state TV, the military says that the plane had flown close to what they describe as a sensitive site. It was mistaken for a hostile target. It says rising tensions with the U.S. meant the military was at its highest level of readiness. The statement says the downing was unintentional and the result of human error, saying those responsible will be held accountable. The military apologized for its role in the tragedy and said a review is underway to make sure similar mistakes can't happen again. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has also expressed his remorse. In a tweet, he says, quote, Armed Forces Internal Investigation has concluded that, regrettably, missiles fired due to human error caused the horrific crash of the Ukrainian plane and the death of 176 innocent people. Investigations continue to identify, to prosecute this great tragedy and unforgivable mistake. The Islamic Republic of Iran deeply regrets this disastrous mistake. My thoughts and prayers go to all the mourning families. I offer my sincerest condolences. So, profound regret, an unforgivable mistake. As Margaret Evans tells us, this is a much different tone than the one we've been hearing from Iran this week.
Iranian state television, which is essentially the mouthpiece for the Iranian government, has been broadcasting a statement, this rather startling admission, this about-face, and we've seen expressions of profound regret from the Iranian leadership. Just 24 hours ago, we were watching a briefing by senior Iranian aviation officials brought out to explain what had happened. They said they were waiting for the investigation, but insisted the one thing they could be certain of was that a missile strike could not have brought that plane down. They were talking about the damaged flight recorders. They said it could take up to 2 years for an investigation to conclude what had happened. And the Iranian government was essentially saying that the whole story of a missile strike was a fabrication by Iran's opponents designed to damage its credibility. This clumsy attempt at a cover-up will certainly do that, not just in the region or abroad, but at home as well. There had been quite a bit of unity in Iran last week in the wake of the U.S. assassination of the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani. People enraged at this, what they saw as an attack. The government at the time called it an act of war. That unity will undoubtedly come under pressure now, and you might see an emboldened opposition becoming more vocal. But you can also count on seeing the Iranian government double down on its messaging, saying that this really came because they were under enormous pressure and forced to act in self-defense. We've already seen statement from the Iranian foreign minister putting it all down to U.S. adventurism. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Beirut.
Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has responded to Iran taking responsibility for the crash. In a statement, he says, quote, our focus remains closure, accountability, transparency, and justice for the families and loved ones of the victims. This is a national tragedy, and all Canadians are mourning together. We'll continue working with our partners around the world to ensure a complete and thorough investigation, and the Canadian government expects full cooperation from Iranian authorities. We also have new reaction from Foreign Affairs Minister François-Philippe Champagne, saying Ottawa is leading a task force made up of nations that lost citizens in the crash of Flight 752. Champagne says the group will push for a transparent investigation. Have a look.
What I want to have is an expert assessment. As soon as we have people on the ground, we will be able to tell Canadians what we hear and be able to provide updates. And that's why the investigation is so crucial. And that's why by creating, I think, the International Coordination and Response Group, that's the best, I would say, at least it's one of the best things we could do to make sure that we speak with one voice, make sure that everyone comes together. We are coordinated. We want full accountability. We want answers to these questions, and the world is watching what the Iranian government is doing now.
Ukraine has also responded to Iran's admission. President Volodymyr Zelensky made a statement this morning saying that he expects Iran to take action and to bring those responsible to justice. Our Chris Brown has the latest from Kyiv.
Well, we're back at Kyiv's Boryspil Airport on the arrivals level, and this is the memorial that's been here really ever since the plane went down. Photographs of the 9 crew members and a memorial of flowers that's been growing and growing really by the hour. So far, since the announcement out of Iran this morning, probably fair to say that the feeling, it's been met with a sense of relief. We're going to hear more later today from the Ukrainian Airlines itself, but they did release a statement first thing this morning. I'll just read from it. Not for a second we had doubts that our crew and our aircraft could be the reason of this horrifying accident. So as I say, a certain measure of relief that at least this part of the story has been told. Also a change of tone from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. He had really been taking a measured approach, not prepared to criticize really anything about the investigation in Iran. Ukraine has 45 people on the ground there now, working with the Iranian investigators. But once the announcement from Iran came out, the president's office released this statement from Volodymyr Zelensky. This morning brings us the truth. Ukraine insists on a full admission of guilt. We expect Iran to bring those responsible to justice, return the bodies, pay compensation, and issue an official apology. The investigation must be full, open, and continue without delays or obstacles. That's the official statement from the president's office here. We did have a very long news conference last night with Ukraine's foreign minister. One interesting thing that was said last night that did not jive with what was said this morning in Iran was the course of the plane. The Iranians seem to be suggesting the plane veered off course, and that's why the missile was fired. Last night, the foreign minister said their investigations determined that was not the case. They believe that the plane was flying in a well-known, frequently used flight path that came out of Tehran airport. Ukraine is saying that that plane should have been safe. Chris Brown, CBC News in Kyiv.
In the wake of Iran's admission, Iran's foreign minister is blaming U.S., quote, adventurism for leading to the disaster. Iran claims the airliner was shot down in a terrible mistake. Susan Ormiston has more on this from Washington.
Iran is without doubt owning this error. The Iranian president said he deeply regrets this disastrous mistake. But the foreign minister, Javad Zarif, who's been harsher throughout this whole week, also turned the blame to U.S. adventurism, saying that was the cause of this tragic human error. And you can expect to hear that more and more through Iran this weekend. It was only a week ago that the U.S. assassinated Soleimani. Iran took revenge, sending missiles into Iraqi bases housing U.S. and allied troops. And then early Wednesday morning, Iran waited for any potential U.S. strike back. It said that it noticed more U.S. military aircraft around its borders. The whole country was on high alert, enhanced, heightened security, including those anti-aircraft missiles.
Susan Ormiston reporting from Washington. Some of the many faces from Flight 752. We know there were 176 people on board, 57 of them Canadian citizens, but many more with ties to this country. They're being remembered in vigils throughout this weekend. Stay with CBC News Network. We have continuing coverage of this story ahead.